It's Monday today, brand new week, brand new episode of Ask the Drummer. Hope you had a great start to the week, or you're having a great start to the week. Today's actually Earth Day. That's why I'm wearing this "No Music on a Dead Planet" T-shirt, because music declares emergency. They've encouraging people who's bought T-shirts from them to wear them today, to show our support for protecting our environment. But this one is actually a special one. It's by Ross Sinclair of the Soup Dragons. They also did a song called "No Music on a Dead Planet," which is a double A side. The other song is "Love Is Love." If you haven't heard of it, it's actually available on 7-inch vinyl and different colors. There's yellow, blue, and pink. And you can get it from Last Night from Glasgow. If you just Google it, it's absolutely amazing. But anyways, yeah, so "No Music on a Dead Planet." So yeah, happy Earth Day to everyone. But anyways, today it's just gone 2 minutes past 7 in the UK. It's 2 minutes past 2 o'clock in the morning in Manila. I hope some of you, my dear friends, are still up and joining us. And where our guest is coming to us from, which is in Oregon, it's 2 minutes past 11 in the morning. I'm just really excited about today's guest because he's like the best twirler drummer I've ever seen live. I mean, for all of you, been a regular, viewer of Ask the Drummer, I'm a big fan of drummers who twirl. So I'm really excited that he said yes to Ask the Drummer. And he's played in Manila last year. They headlined the New Wave Invasion in Manila, and I'm really, really happy that he's here today. Direct from Portland, Oregon. My dear friends, please welcome Kevin Rankin. Yay!
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Happy Earth Day to you, Anne.
Yeah, happy Earth Day. Yeah. Do you have Music Declares Emergency T-shirts in America as well, or is it just the UK?
You know what? I don't. No, today I'm representing Revival Drum Shop T-shirt, though. Just the greatest drum shop on the planet.
Oh, wow.
Happens to be in Portland. So, yeah. So drummers should know.
Yeah. All right. So what's the weather like? I thought you were in California, but it's Portland, Oregon that you're in at the moment. And is that
I was in California yesterday. We played a couple of shows in Cali this weekend, but I live in Portland.
You live in Portland. And what's the weather like?
It's beautiful. 70. Yeah. It's in Fahrenheit, it's about 70 degrees. It's beautiful. Sunny, beautiful. But we typically, because you're in the UK, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So we've got very similar weather to the UK. I think we're about the same distance from the equator, and so cloudy, rainy days a lot of the time of the year. But right now, it's beautiful.
And we don't get so extreme weather like in Canada or so.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you mentioned that you were in California for a gig, and I think I've seen a clip where you played in the same bill as Men Without Hats.
That's right? On Friday night. Yeah, we were in just outside of Los Angeles, a suburb of Los Angeles, Cerritos. Beautiful venue on Friday night. It was the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts, and sold out show. Men Without Hats. They're awesome. They're such a great band. They're friends of ours from a long time ago. So,
yeah. Well, I've got to say, last time I saw you, it's actually the first time I saw you and the Flock of Seagulls was in 2022 in Brudenell in Leeds.
Yeah.
And I've got to say this because it's really a memorable time for me. The day of the gig, that afternoon, I got a message from my husband saying that the hospital wanted me to go back because they've seen something after I had my breast screening and stuff. So they wanted me. So that afternoon, I said to my husband, because got me worried, I said, I want to go home. I want to go back. And then he said to me, there's no point of you going home because the appointment is not until tomorrow morning anyways. So why don't you just go and see a flock of seagulls? Because I was really looking forward to seeing a flock of seagulls. And even because I was staying with my daughter at the time, and she also said to me, just enjoy the gig tonight. And then don't worry about it until you get back home. So yeah, so I'm really glad that they said that to me, because I very, very much enjoyed the gig that night.
Oh, well,
And
yeah, I mean, good for them and good for you. But how did the screening turn out? Are you doing okay?
it's actually so like again, this is that's why it's very important that I met you and I've seen you play, because they found something, there's like an abnormality. So on the 20th of April, which is like 2 days 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and everything, so I had it so like removed.
So,
And I'm
have you had a
so
successful scan since?
yeah, so yeah, I had couple of surgeries and I'm taking medication now, so hopefully it won't come back, so fingers crossed. So
Yeah, right. Oh man,
yeah, so
bless
that's
you.
why,
Bless
yeah,
you.
that's what this is really important to me. So I was like, I said, oh my
Yeah.
god, yes, he said yes. So yeah, anyways, before I actually
I'm
start,
glad
like,
you're here.
oh, thank you, thank you. I'm glad
Yeah.
that I'm glad that I'm here as well, because it was really scary. But yes, I am so like really happy that I'm still here. But before we continue, I just want to say hello to Josh, Josh Stofferson. He's like drummer. We only know him as a roller coaster enthusiast.
Yeah.
And Scott Wilcox as well said Kevin needs sleep. So
Yes, he
yeah,
does.
well,
Yes,
yeah,
he's right.
yeah.
So
Hello.
just as an aside, so Josh Stofferson is he runs the Night Ranger podcast, the Fans in Motion Night Ranger podcast. So if you're fans of the band Night Ranger, check out Fans in Motion podcast. And Scott Wilcox there in the chat is a dear friend who happens to somehow sort of coexist in Cambodia while also living in Washington, the U.S. So he's he's been to see a flock of seagulls all over the world. He's pretty incredible. So nice to see you guys both.
Wow. Oh, that's brilliant. It's so good. Well, anyway, so welcome to, thank you for joining us, Josh and Scott and Jen Nang from the Philippines, from Manila.
Oh,
she just
sweet.
appeared, said so, hi Kevin. So that's really
Hi,
cool.
Jen.
2 o'clock in the morning, and she's still up, so thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, welcome to Ask the Drummer. Episode 122 is all about you, Kevin Rankin. So you live in Portland, Oregon now, but were you born in Oregon?
No, I was born, I don't know how well you know the United States, but I was born in Montana.
Okay.
So yeah, I was born in Montana, and I kind of grew up out in the mountains, in the woods, in the forest, in a cabin. So, but yeah, I moved to Portland 30 years ago.
Okay, but what was it like growing up in Montana? So, like, especially the music, is there like a music scene in Montana?
Oh yeah, everybody goes to Montana. No, I'm kidding. No, it's funny that a lot of musicians that played professionally and had a good career in music oftentimes retire to Montana. It's a beautiful place to be from and to maybe retire. When I was growing up and I was playing drums, I couldn't wait to get out of there. All of my friends wanted to go to Los Angeles and go to the big music schools and go to the Sunset Strip where everything was happening in the 80s. And I stayed behind and went to college. And at that time, I was 17, and I was really upset that I didn't follow my dream. And all my friends went to Los Angeles, where their dreams were subsequently quashed and destroyed, and none of them are playing music anymore. And I chose a different path that I'm grateful that I did. I had very supportive parents that encouraged me to at least get a sort of a I don't want to say an alternate plan or a backup plan, but there was an alternate plan, for a degree. And I studied music as a minor, but I got my degree in sociology, and I was a youth counselor for a while. And but Portland had so in the early 90s, Seattle blew up, right? The grunge scene was a huge thing in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I felt like Portland, when I went to visit, was very similar to Seattle, but a little bit smaller. Didn't feel so overwhelming. And coming from Montana, I wanted to have a little smaller town feel.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place. It really is. If you've not been to Portland, we are about an hour, hour and a half from the ocean, and we got beautiful beaches. But then I'm also less than an hour from the mountains. I have forests within 8 minutes of my house, and so it's very green, like UK. And
Yeah.
and the music scene thrives here. In Montana, I was playing in high school in bars, and there are a lot of ski areas there in Montana. And
Oh,
so while I was going to high school, I would most of my friends were working, McDonald's and gas stations and those kinds of jobs. And I was really fortunate to have gotten into some bands that were playing at the ski resorts and the bars around Montana within a couple of hours of my house. And so I'd play
yeah.
for 5 nights a week and play until 2 o'clock in the morning and then drive home, go to high school, keep my drums there, and run right
Yeah.
back out to the gigs. And so while it wasn't really known to be a music state, I found ways to actually put myself through college playing music, and I played in all sorts of bands, everything from rock and roll stuff to reggae bands and
Yeah.
some progressive, jazz bands, and a lot of stuff in the university. And so there are people there that make
No.
a living with music, but
Yeah.
that wasn't going to be me.
But were you from a musical family? Because you said that your parents are very supportive. Are they also from like a musical background or not
Yeah,
really?
yeah. My father got me my first gigs. He still a little bit raw. My pop passed away a couple weeks ago, and I
Oh, I'm
was in
so
Montana with
sorry.
him.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So,
He played in Dixieland jazz bands, and so I started off playing clarinet like him. He played saxophone and clarinet, and I would watch his bands growing up, and I was just fascinated by the camaraderie that each of the guys in the band had. And I loved the fact that my dad was a teacher by day, and then he'd go out and he'd play these gigs with his friends at night. And so I started off playing clarinet, and by the time I hit puberty, I realized that I needed a little bit more of an outlet. My uncle played drums in a jazz band in Chicago, Illinois, and I found his drums on a visit, and I was so blown away by the sound and the power and the look of them, and the sort of variation between he was a jazz drummer. His son
yeah.
played rock stuff, and so he had this massive drum set that also had like rototoms and a whole ton of cymbals, and I was floored. And that summer was a real pivotal point for me, because MTV was really pushing a lot of rock stuff, and so the videos were big, bombastic drum sets and a lot of girls and everything else that go along with rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so I changed gears completely, went after drums. I couldn't afford great drums. I saved up, the jobs that I had to get a CB700 drum set from a guy out of a barn covered in hay and dust, and I got some broken cymbals from salvage shops, and I couldn't afford cymbal stands. And so at first we lived in this cabin with rafters, right? We had these log rafters. So I would hang my cymbals off of ropes from the rafters, and I'd crash them, and I'd have to duck so that I didn't get hit by the cymbals when they went by. And right after that, my dad was playing a gig at an art gallery, and it was a jazz gig, and
Yeah.
I was not a jazz player. I had big hair and I wanted to rock like the guys that I saw on MTV. But my dad said, "Hey, they need a drummer for this gig, pay $75." And I thought, they're going to pay me to go play drums?
To play drums,
And
yeah.
I just found the journal article from that time that I wrote. I was 16, I think. Yeah, I think 1986. And I remember in the journal, it reminded me that I just said, this is absolutely what I want to do the rest of my life. There's nothing else that I want to do.
Yeah.
And started playing more and more gigs. My dad got me into cover bands where I was playing old classic rock tunes, and I was able to afford cymbal stands and get better drums. And
Of course.
that's
Yeah.
that's a long time ago, almost
Wow.
36 years ago, I guess. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Did you
Yeah.
have proper drumming lessons though, or did you just sort of like teach yourself?
I started off teaching myself. I took a couple of lessons early on before I even had drums. I took a couple of lessons, and I got the rudimental books, and I learned some things
Yeah.
there. But you start off with practice pad, and at 16 years old, I was not interested in the rudimental parts of it at that point. When I went to college and I was studying music and studio teaching, then I got proper instruction. I had an amazing professor that had been he was very well known in the snare drum marching world, and also as a mallet percussionist. So Dan Moore was his name, and he did a lot of four mallet percussion, marimba and vibraphone and xylophone. So there was. I'm hearing a little bit of echo, I think, on your end. I apologize. I don't know if you were able to mute or perhaps. Hang on. Just let me just go ahead and kill one of my sources here. Anyways, that professor really got me into rudimental stuff and also taught me a variety of different instruments. And so I studied a little bit of mallet percussion and also snare drum, and I did some marching quads, and marching band. And I still wanted to just play drum set, but at least I got a little bit of a better sort of well-rounded education that way.
There you go. Hello, everyone. We're back. We're live again. I am so sorry about that, Kevin. I still don't know. I've been doing this for like nearly 3 years now, and I still don't know why it does that. It's just one of those things. I just can't figure it out. And
I think I've got a podcast as well. And
I do, and I'm going to ask you about that. I'm so glad that that it hasn't happened for a while. I mean, it has happened before, but it hasn't happened for a long time. And I'm glad that you understand how it works. Yeah. So, but anyway, so let's carry on. So your first band, which was like when you were still in Montana, what happened to that one? So did anything happen to them or to your band?
No, nothing substantial. I mean, I had crazy experiences with a lot of these bands, and I learned a lot of things as a 16 and 17-year-old about about the music business and relationships in the bands, getting paid. There were a lot of things I learned about from those, but I joined some other original bands as well. And so I played in a lot of different bands from that point, from 16, 17, went on to college, and I played with a whole series of bands through college, both original and cover. And my first original band that did any recording or anything was called Energy Positive. And it was an amazing band. The bass player was a classically trained jazz bassist who was a progressive player. He teaches at university now. He was the greatest player and sort of influence on me because he sort of mentored me, and got my skills up, and he also sort of taught me a lot of things under his wing, and it sort of inspired me to want to play a variety of different styles. And I started playing with some other guys in Montana that decided that Portland was a better location. When Seattle was blowing up, we were going to relocate to Portland, and so nothing other than formative relationships and a couple of funny demo recordings, and some album recordings came out of those times. But Portland was the game changer for me.
Oh, brilliant! And but did you ever manage to release those recordings that you did, or because on Discogs? Because I always use Discogs as a reference, because that's where I find out what other bands do, so like musicians or the drummers played in. But I couldn't find your name. I don't think you're in Discogs.
Oh yeah, not for those. I mean, they were the only album that came out that had any sort of commercial, success at all. It came out right at the time that I moved to Portland. There were three of us, and it was a band called 6 Days, and it sounded like a mashup of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and sort of a composite of all those bands from the 90s and the Seattle scene. And I was determined to move to Portland and make that band hugely successful. and we sold a handful of those CDs, mostly by me. I got a job at a music store,
Oh wow.
and it was a commercial music store, and I
Yeah,
would go
yeah.
in to take out what the record companies were forcing down the throats of the commercial public, and I would replace them with our independent CDs and say, "Oh, I don't know how that got in there, but you really should suggest, you should consider listening to this band." And I was a I was a relentless guerrilla salesman, and but that band broke up right about the time I moved, and I joined another band that did have some marketable success in the Northwest U.S., Portland. I mean, like Oregon and Washington, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did a lot of shows in the Northwest, and signed a record deal. And right in the midst of the record deal, I left, from some band politics, and that's probably in Discogs. It was a band called On a Llama, and
Oh,
that we sold, a good handful of albums, and a lot of people in the Northwest have been hammering the band to
yeah.
reform. But the singer, it was another three-piece girl singer on bass, and she was phenomenal, amazing songwriter, and but like a true artist, music sort of took a toll on her mental well-being, and she
Oh,
opted out of the
yeah,
music business.
yeah,
So good fun.
yeah. Well, we've got a message here from Ira
Okay.
Schwartz. Hey, Kevin, you guys sounded great at Disney last week. Was like Disneyland?
Disney
So,
World in Florida.
Disney
Yeah. Hey,
World in
Ira.
Yeah, yeah.
In
So,
Florida, we played 6 shows
oh,
at
wow.
Epcot Center.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's very good. Well, yeah, he was there, so he's seen it. But so these are around that time. It's grunge scene that you're into.
Yeah.
Um, so is that right? So it's all like
Yeah.
early 90s and
Yeah. The '90s. The band that I started with, 6 Days, that I mentioned, they were very much the grunge sound. On a Llama, the three-piece with the girl singer, was not.
yeah.
It was something totally new. As far as stylistic sounds, they were kind of a cross between like Garbage and the Breeders, maybe, if you know those
Oh,
bands.
okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe Belly. The very
Oh,
similar
Belly.
kind of
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, so that had a time as well that was not quite as classic and timeless as a band like a Flock of Seagulls. So
Yeah, because that's really sort of like what I'm going, what I'm trying to get into. Because I've seen that, when I googled your name and everything, that you've actually played in lots of new wave bands. This
yeah,
is I actually find this really fascinating because you like
I
in
do.
Animotion, New Shoes, Missing Persons, The Romantics. I mean, these are all sort of like new wave bands. So, but coming from a background which is sort of like a grunge scene, so
Yeah.
and that. So, are you a fan of the new wave, what we call new
Oh
wave
yeah.
music in the Philippines? Are you a fan of it when you were growing up, or yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah. Yeah. So as a teenager, my
yeah.
girlfriend and I would go roller skating on the weekends. Right, that was the thing to do, is to go roller skating to the new wave music. And
Oh, I see.
so I
Okay.
I grew up as a huge fan of A Flock of Seagulls and Animotion, and a huge Missing Persons fan, of course. I mean, how can you not, with
Yeah, yeah.
Terry Bozzio, right? So, and Terry Bozzio. But I was certainly more of a hard rock fan than a new wave fan, and I hate to admit that, but like when I like the Scorpions were my favorite band growing up, but it was Scorpions and Prince. Prince was my favorite artist, and so I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a wide range of music that I was into, and I listened to a ton of new wave, and I didn't get into the sort of darker, moody bands like The Cure and Depeche Mode until the pandemic. Honestly, I wasn't into a lot of those bands, but I liked a lot of obscure new wave stuff. So there were like bands like artists like Nick Kershaw. I was a big Nick Kershaw fan,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
uh, Ultravox. I loved Ultravox. I was a massive Ultravox fan, and so bands that didn't have as much commercial success as bands like The Cure, and but I also, like I said, I loved like Scorpions and Van Halen and all those bands.
Yeah, yeah.
The grunge thing just happened to sort of come. That sound came out when I was playing with my friends, and the sound I think you probably just sort of mirror those sounds without trying to. But the new wave thing came around after I left that Analama band, when the band was signing the record deal. I just was kind of burned out on the politics of the music business. And I just wanted to have fun with music, because as a drummer, it's about release and
Yeah,
expression.
yeah,
And when the diplomat, or I mean the political and the bureaucratic sort of things come into play and they change it into a business, it's not as fun anymore. And so the allure of trying to be three musketeers in a band and trying to go out and sort of conquer the world, they had subsided a little bit. And so I just wanted to play with a bunch of people that I enjoyed. And so I played a lot of records and a lot of live shows with
yeah,
everything under the sun in Portland. I played in folk artist groups and heavy metal bands and um, everything under the sun. And I got a
yeah,
call
yeah,
from Bill Wadhams from Animotion. Um, well, yeah. So Animotion had sort of been defunct for a long time,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the
What year was this?
'80s.
Sorry. What
It's
year was this?
2002.
2002. Okay. All right. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And they had done one show together as a reunion, sort of as a hodgepodge mix of some of the artists that they could get together, and they were going to do another show in some of the band members' hometown in Fresno, California, and it happened to be my birthday, and I get a call from Bill asking me to come, and he said he wanted to meet first, and
Yeah.
so Bill Wadhams and Astrid Plain are the two original singers from the band, and I knew the history a little bit about the band, but I sat down with him and we just sat and had some drinks and talked about what happened in the 80s and his band and what he had done since then. And he had seen, I think, my original band in town. I had certainly seen his. He had another original band that was much different than Animotion. It was sort of newer Americana rock. And
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
personality wise, we clicked like brothers in that first meeting. It was really, and I think it's important. I talk to musicians about it a lot, is that the relationships you develop are so much more important than just the musical conversation you
Yeah,
have. And
yeah, yeah.
so I came away from that not getting an audition, but getting the gig after just talking to him for a couple of hours. And I was so excited because I was a big Animotion fan. Obsession was something I roller skated to all the time, right? And
Yeah.
it, ha- it the I, and an, the gig was so interesting because it was at a small club in Fresno, California. But the other guys in that band had done so many other things in that time that they had off. The guitarist had been with Rod Stewart for a long time on guitar. The keyboardist had done everything from Michael Jackson's Thriller album to I could give you this list, but he'd been with Jose Feliciano for a long time. So these guys were all accomplished musicians that they
Yeah,
got
yeah.
together for a reunion gig. And the guitarist looked at the singer and he said, "Where'd you get this drummer, man? This guy, he hits hard and he's fun." And they said, maybe we could give this another shot and actually do more than just this one reunion gig. And that turned into over 15 years of playing with them, where we played all over the
Whoa.
planet.
Oh wow. That's but you've been so like before that before joining Animotion, you were playing drums non-stop in all different bands and everything. You didn't
Yeah.
stop playing drums.
No,
No.
no, I just
So
stopped playing with shitty people.
but then so like
Sorry.
15 years in Animotion and then you got into sort of like all these other new wave bands because I mean we love new shoes in the Philippines as well and like
Yeah.
missing persons of course. So how did you get into sort of like how did you manage to sort of like get into those bands and the Romantics as well? I mean I can still hear talking in your sleep. It's all
Oh
like that was
yeah.
massive. It was like,
It was massive for sure, and I was a huge Romantics fan. I should
yeah,
mention. So Mike Skill, the guitarist from the Romantics, lives
Romantics.
in
Yeah.
Portland, and so I didn't play with the Romantics band. I played with Mike, and he had a side project where we would play "Talking in Your Sleep" and "What I Like About You" and
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
tunes. But he and I started doing recording and side music probably 15 years ago in Portland, and so he has a lot of original music, and we released a bunch of singles. And the drummer that's been with Romantics for long, I guess over 20 years, Brad Elvis, he was the Romantics drummer. He lives in Chicago, And so when Mike Skill would go over to Chicago, he'd record with Brad. And so Mike has this sort of composite of Chicago band and
Oh, I
Portland band.
see.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
I was we with you asked about how some of these other things developed.
Yeah.
With Animotion, we started doing a lot of shows as package dates with other artists, and so bands like Missing Persons and New Shoes and the Motels and Tommy
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
Tone and the Romantics. They all were on the same listing of the lineups, and so we would hang backstage. We would see each other play. We developed friendships. That's where A Flock of Seagulls came in. Tommy Two Tone also lived in Portland, so 8675309. Of course, you know that
Yeah.
single.
Yeah.
He's a Portland guy, and we got to meet at some shows that we all did together. And he needed a drummer, and so I started playing with him probably 20 some years ago. And once I started doing a few shows with Tommy, bands like New Shoes saw, oh, Kevin seems to
We
be
need a
adapting,
drummer.
able to
Yeah.
play with, yeah. And so I get the phone call, and I think a lot of it had nothing to do with my ability to play drums. I really think it was just that I love people. I do. I love to just get to, I like to know who people really are. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so whether it's people on stage or people in the crowd, so those bands would call me because they knew I was reliable and I'd learn their stuff, and I think I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Missing
Yeah.
Persons, I was a massive fan, and so I was really excited to get the call. I think the first gigs I did with Dale were 18 years ago,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
19 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the last 20 years have really been, kind of revisiting my childhood fan base, where I was a
Yeah.
fan. It's
Yeah.
I'm very, very blessed to get those experiences.
I can imagine because it's like you already know the song, so it's
Yeah.
probably so like easy for you to sort of like play drums because you know them anyway. So like you know those
You think
songs
that.
already.
Here's the thing
But
about that is that we hear all these songs we've listened to on the radio, and
yeah,
so if somebody were to say, "Oh yeah, get up here and sit in with my band to play 8675309,"
yeah, yeah,
I know the way I listen to it on the radio. A lot of the bands that are out there playing don't play it exactly like you hear it on the radio. They might play different tempos, or maybe they change the arrangement around a little bit. And so, yeah, I know structurally, I know how those songs should be. I know how I want them to feel because I heard them on the radio that way.
yeah,
But some bands play their songs so fast that it doesn't even sound like the original song, and so you got to be willing to adapt, right? But
yeah,
there were a couple of experiences that I had a long time ago that bands would ask me, "Hey man, you should get up and play drums on this," and I chickened out when I was young, and I think I never want to do that again. I will throw caution to the wind and make myself look like a fool for the
yeah.
opportunity to play. So never say no. Always say
No.
yes.
I'm going to say Scott Wilcox says Front 242 in Portland, September 14. Is that September 14 this year? So you're going to be playing with them, or?
Oh no! You know what? Here's the thing about Scott Wilcox. Like I said, Scott Wilcox goes all over the world to see shows. He goes to see us, but he also sees a million other bands.
Oh,
And so
right, okay.
I think he's on a campaign to break the Guinness Book of World Records for the most concerts attended. And,
Yeah.
he,
Okay.
he'll come out and surprise me. He showed up at a show that we played in Washington, and it was a very beautiful experience. My parents came out from Montana to come see the show, and there was Scott Wilcox in the front row with a bright purple Heavy Metal sticker on, or Heavy Metal
Oh,
shirt
wow.
on.
Give
And,
me-
and so, yeah, every time I'm looking out at the crowd, there's Scott beaming
Yes.
with his big smile and his Heavy Metal shirt. So thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
he's-
these 80s, I presume it's the 80s sort of like revival tour that you're talking about with Missing Persons and Animotion and New Shoes. And you mentioned that that's how you got into, is that right? That's how you got into A Flock of Seagulls?
That's right.
Doing that tour. So what happened? So did Mike Score just sort of like tell you that we need a drummer or something?
Oh yeah. Well, we'd all become friends. Like, I think the first shows that we did with them, the first that I can remember, Animotion did a show with Devo and a Flock of Seagulls and a few other bands in San Francisco in 2003, like 21 years ago, and hanging out with them backstage. They were just fun. The guys in the band all became my friends. And over the next 10 plus years, we did so many shows together that you become family, really. You're hanging out with all these people. And Michael Brahm, their drummer, was a great dude. I love this guy, and we were buddies. We were hanging out all the time. And for whatever reason, he wanted to go elsewhere. He did have an experience where he burned his hands really badly, and so I needed to come in. They needed an alternate or substitute to come in and play some shows. There's an 80s cruise that went down to the Bahamas, and they had a couple of shows to lead into that. And the band called me and said, Mike burned his hands really bad. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to play again. And we need somebody to leave rainy Oregon and go down to the Bahamas on a cruise, get paid to go travel through the Caribbean in the middle of February. Are you interested? And so, yes, please get me out of here. And it was I remember they called me at Thanksgiving, and I did some shows around Christmas and New Year's, and then we went and did the cruise, and then Mike came back into the band. He'd healed up a little bit, and I think he just felt like he was really interested in playing shows elsewhere, and they called and said, "Hey, gigs open. You know the music. You want to do it?" And I tried to do both for just a couple of shows with Animotion. I'd been with them for a long, long time, and developed friendships. There was a new record coming out, and the record was just all drum machine, so it wasn't so much like family anymore, but it was more business, and it was really fortuitous that when I had a conversation with Bill and talked to him about moving forward with Flock, they found the original drummer from Animotion up in the mountains in Arizona, and he was available. So it was perfect timing for him to come back into the fold with Animotion, and I still retain my friendships and family connection with Animotion. But the few shows that I did with both bands, it was tough to do Flock and Animotion together because it cheapens the brand a little bit. It didn't look like that's a band up there with a flock of seagulls. And so Mike Score had a great conversation with me, and he said, do what you want to do. I know that those guys are family to you, but I really would prefer, my guy to be my guy. And I got it. I totally got it.
Yeah.
And so we moved forward with that, I guess 9 years ago now. So,
yeah.
All right.
So
in my 9th year.
Yeah. So A Flock of Seagulls is your band now. So that's your band.
My band. It's his band. Make no mistake about that. But yes, I'm that's my exclusive. I still last year on tour, Dale needed a sub for a couple of gigs with Missing Persons, so I picked those up, to help her out and to play with her again, of course, But for the most part, we are so busy with the Flock of Seagulls. We play a lot of gigs. And every day. If I turn my phone over by the end of this conversation, there's probably another gig in my inbox, So it doesn't allow for a lot of time for other gigs.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I'm going to ask you is because A Flock of Seagulls is very iconic from the 80s, like with the hair and the sound and everything. So it was like, so it must be sort of like, because you're a fan of new wave music as well. Do you ever talk to Mike Score about the hairstyle and everything? Because it was like the wedding singer, it was there and everything. So.
Mike Score has become a meme, right? His hair has become sort of like he's a cultural icon, a musical icon, and we do talk about it a lot. In the last 9 years, we've had thousands of conversations about experiences back in the day. I've had him on my podcast a couple of times, where he's told some stories that it's unbelievable, the amount of success that band had. And how affected and influenced so many bands are from the band even back then. I just went to see U2 at the Sphere in Vegas, right? Amazing, crazy show. And I had seen interviews and heard conversations about the Edge from U2 taking his sound from Paul Reynolds back in the early days of A Flock of Seagulls, like in the 79, 80, he was getting a lot of the echo and delay and reverb, and you can hear it now. When I go back and I listen to U2 songs, I think, oh my gosh, he's not kidding. That's Flock of, that derived from that sound. So it's cool to see where the influences have impacted.
Yeah, because Mike Score lives in America now, doesn't he? I mean, does he still go back to Liverpool sometimes?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
he does.
He's got a home in Liverpool and a home in the U.S. and he's there oftentimes. I don't know which he would consider more his home base, but if we're doing shows in the U.S., he might camp out, at his place in America for a while. But I think he still considers Liverpool home
as his home. Yeah.
I think so.
His brother Ali Score. He's the original drummer of A Flock of Seagulls. Have you actually met him?
I never have. I want to. Ali, you get this, man. I've been trying. It's so funny that there are probably, I guess, one show in every 10 that somebody will come up and say, Ali, hey man, I saw you back in 1981. And I think,
I'm not.
Okay. I'm not Ali. I appreciate the thought, man. And I'm a big fan of his drumming, but I certainly wouldn't make somebody feel bad about it. I think it's an honor that they would consider that I might be. But there are a handful of people that social media, right? So there are people that have some groups on Facebook that are insistent that without all original members, then it's not A Flock of Seagulls, or they might actually disparage the band or the current members for what we're doing.
No.
And I used to see these Facebook groups, and I'm not going to take offense because they don't know me or my drumming, but I would sometimes jump in and say, hey, you know what? I understand because I'm a fan of the band too. And I really love the music. And without Ali Score and Paul Reynolds and Frank Maudsley, we would not be here today. And so I love that Mike is keeping the legacy going and the music going, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to play the music. I tell those people, come out to the show. If you don't like it, I mean, I did this once. I told them at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, I said, a bunch of you guys are based in Liverpool. Come to the Cavern. We're playing there. If you come to the show and you hate the show, I'll give you your money back. And a bunch of people came, and they were sitting with their arms crossed watching this. And then nobody asked for the money back. A bunch of people on the Facebook group said, well, that was really ballsy of the drummer to say that. And actually, the band was really cool. It's heavier than we expected the band to be. But but they appreciated the fact that, we're not trying to be the originals.
The original.
We're not calling ourselves original, And I think, Frank jumped up and he played with us for a couple of shows on this last tour.
Oh, brilliant.
He joined us in Leeds, and he also joined us in Chester, and it was a fun surprise. Fantastic. We didn't expect it, but he got up and did Iran with us both nights, and he killed it. He was awesome. We had a blast backstage talking and laughing about the times, and I would hope that Ali comes out at some point too, and I would gladly hand him the drumsticks and say, man, do this. It'd be awesome. It'd be really cool.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked that is there have been been to gigs where I've seen the original drummer actually in the audience watching the new drummer. So I'm
with other bands.
Yeah, other bands, yeah. So I spoke to the drummer after the gig, and I was are you okay? So is that a bit daunting? So seeing that the original drummer is actually watching you play, and so but he said, they're friends anyways, and he knows it. He's been playing it. It's quite good. So
you know what? If I was doing a missing persons gig and Terry was out in the crowd watching me, I would poop my pants. I would, but no, I'm all good with any other band. That's all fine.
Yeah. Well, Scott Wilcox said that we need new Flock music. So that's what he said. And Scott Campbell, he just saw Flock of Seagulls in all caps. So nice. Yes. Flock of Seagulls, that's you were in the Philippines last year headlining the New Wave Invasion, which is, I
Right.
think, now becoming like an annual thing. And there's Peter Coyle from the Lotus Eaters, Steve Kilbey from the Church,
Yeah.
and Frank Kearns from Cactus World News. What was that like? Sometimes I wish that I've seen some clips on Facebook, but it
Yeah.
just made me wish that I was there, as
Yeah.
well. Because New
It,
Wave, I think you know that New Wave is massive in the Philippines,
yeah.
even now, or
Oh,
even more so, like more so now, I think. So, what was
big
that
time.
like?
Well, it was my first trip to the Philippines, and I love to travel. I love to check out new places. So whenever we go
Yeah,
someplace, especially if it's someplace I've never been, I take extra time, which means, like Scott alluded to earlier, I get no sleep because I feel like it's a waste of time to sleep if I got places to go and people to see. So I think I was there 3 days before the show, and I tried to get as much of Manila in as I possibly could. I walked the city, took motorcycles and cabs and buses and the SkyTrain, and I just tried to see as much of the area
on
and
your
get the
own,
culture. Yeah,
on your own.
yeah. I was told later on that was not a good idea
No,
because like
no,
when
I was gonna say that's
I
very brave of you to do
well,
that.
yeah, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned it too. Yeah, the promoter said, "What were you doing walking around Manila by yourself?" And I usually feel like I have a really good sense, for danger, and I've been to some places where I think, okay, this is not the right place for me to be. I didn't feel that in most of the places in Manila, but um, I mean, I got solicited for a bunch of different things, but I didn't, I didn't feel like my life was in danger. But I understand that Americans get kidnapped, and there's some ransom things that happen there too. But yeah, my naivete was not smart, but I had a great time. The shows were
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, Gilby was right across the hall from me in my hotel, and I have to give a shout out too to some Filipinos because, first of all, the facility was incredible. They really took care of us. I mean, honestly, the experience I had there was so luxurious. They put us up in a beautiful hotel. I took a picture from my balcony, and I didn't say where I was from. I just said, "Good morning, Manila." And a friend of mine from Portland, Oregon, texted me immediately and said, "Are you at the Century Park Hotel?" And I said, "Yeah. How did you know?" And he said, "Well, my brother-in-law is the head of security there. I've been to that hotel a bunch of times, and if you're still going to be around later tomorrow, I'll make sure that you're well fed." So Skip Stone and Mary Chris, his wife, had their family bring me this tray, probably 4 feet wide, packed full of everything under the sun, from noodles and skewers to desserts. They gave me enough food for at least a dozen people, and so I all the guys in our band were on different floors of the hotel. So I served up plates. I brought them to each of the guys in the band, and I still had 20 pounds of food left. And so I heard Gilby across the hallway, and I'd never met him before. And I went over and I knocked on his door. I heard him warming up on his vocals, and I said, I'm sorry to bother you, man. You don't know me at all, but here's the story. I've got all this food. We're doing a show tomorrow. If you're not leaving the hotel and you're interested in any of this, I've got so much food. Let me share this with you. And he looked at me like I was a terrorist. Like he wanted to, he was like petrified. He's like, "I'm good. Thanks, man. We're fine." he, like, I was just trying to be nice, but anyway, thank you to the wonderful family of Skip and Mary Chris for really treating me
Oh
well.
wow.
The Filipino people were so beautiful, and I loved seeing absolute joy in people that work really, really hard to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
afford to see live music. When I talk to a lot of locals there, and I understand that it's a challenging economy there, and so people
Mm,
that are on average a family of of able-bodied workers, the mother and father of children, have to work, you know, 16 hours a day just to be able to put food
yeah,
on people's
yeah,
table and or on the
yeah.
kids' mouth and the kids' table, and for them to come out and pack into a soccer arena to come out and see a festival like that, you know, it just makes me realize, number one, the power of music and how it affects people, but also I never want to take for granted the people that are able to come out and do that, are willing to come out and do that. They buy
Yeah, yeah,
tickets, they buy merchandise, they get hotels, they fly in for shows, they spend gas, they take a night off of work, whatever. You know, I get to go and hit things and get paid to do it and get to meet people. And I am the most fortunate person on the planet. But that one in particular really hit me because I saw wonderful people that truly take every ounce of appreciation for what they got that night, and I
yeah,
hope we go
yeah.
back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, is that the first time that a flock of seagulls actually? Because I thought it was like a second, or was it just the first? The
No,
first time that they
oh,
played there.
they had played there about 12 years ago, I think. Yeah, so they
Okay, so
did
it
one show
wasn't
there.
you. Yeah,
No,
it
it
wasn't
wasn't
you
me. Yeah,
drumming
so
then. Yeah,
it
yeah,
was my first time, and
yeah.
I am the guy in the band that will go out and probably risk all to go out and see the sights because they're yeah, the rest of the guys, we're tired. You fly 16, 18 hours, and they want to hang in the hotel, and I don't blame them for it. But
Yeah, yeah,
there's a lot on this planet that I want to see, and a lot of people I'd like to meet, and so I
yeah.
don't want to leave anything behind.
Well, did you do meet and greets? Because Jen, I think she's gone to sleep now because it's really late in the Philippines. But Jen, I
Yeah,
saw her message earlier that she actually got assigned drumsticks as well.
she
And
did.
so,
Yep. I remember exactly where she was standing too when we finished because I was a fan, of some of the other bands. I was walking around and watching the church, and Lotus, um,
Peter
but I
Coyle, yeah.
yeah, Peter Coyle, yep. But the uh, the people that were there, it was amazing that they knew so many words to the obscure songs, the B sides of those tunes. They're not just waiting for Iran to come out. They knew all the rare things. But Scott Wilcox mentioned here earlier about new music, and there is a new record coming out. There's a brand new video that will be released. I mean, it could be even this week. That we shot
Oh,
some live stuff
brilliant.
from
Yeah,
from Leeds, from Brudenell, where you
yeah,
saw the
yeah.
band. We shot a music video there October 1st, and the night before in Chester. So there's a song called "Some Dreams." It's a new single that Mike has coming out, and we did a video for that.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
great song called "Hymn" that people seem to really love. There's another one called "Lovers and Strangers." It's a blast to play on drums. It's got great drum parts and yeah. So there's some
Well,
new stuff coming out.
yeah, there you go, Scott. But actually, he also said that he just left Manila last Monday. Oh, well, so he was in Manila,
Yeah.
and he'd love to know if New Wave Invasion is happening again this year. I think it is. It is. I think it's becoming like an annual thing now, Scott. So, yeah, Zachary Delaplanque. I hope I got your name.
Oh, Zach Delaplanque. Yeah.
He just said,
Hey,
"I hope you're
Zach.
doing well, man." So,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
yeah, and Irish Fox. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I
go
don't want
on.
to interrupt you. I was just going to say, so I mentioned growing up in Montana and learning to play drums. My best friend that I learned to play drums with was Zach's dad, actually Steve Delaplanque. And
Oh, right.
unfortunately, like Steve passed away about
Oh,
8 weeks ago now. Yeah, Zach's father. And if
oh,
anybody knows
oh.
about losing a dad, I mean, I'm right there with you. But
Yeah, yeah.
Zach is a good man in Colorado. So thanks for being here, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lost my dad 16 when I was 16. So, and
Oh,
it's actually his birthday today. So another
today.
important, yeah, another
Wow.
important sort of like date for me. But yeah,
Happy
um,
birthday to your
yeah.
pops.
So like, Irish Watts also said that you asked for hecklers, so here's your heckling, heckle,
All right.
heckle, heckle, heckle.
Serve it up, Ira. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So, the Filipinos. I mean, I'm originally from the Philippines, so I know what it's like, and especially
Yeah.
the new wave music scene. I'm actually really pleased that it's alive and kicking in
Yeah.
Manila at the moment. So, but I'm glad that you had a great time there because I think all of these new wave bands who go to Manila, they really enjoy it. So like,
They
because
better. Yeah.
yeah, because the Filipinos' hospitality is actually world famous. So we are really so like we want to make sure that everyone is so like well fed and so like
Man,
yeah. Because I remember one
amazing.
time I asked David Gedge from the wedding singer, the wedding present. He went there with his band, just so like a small gig that he did. And then when I asked him, so well, how was it? Did you? And then he just said that they were well fed. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah. That was
yeah,
a blessing. But
yeah,
yeah, I just love good people, and I could tell that that
yeah,
place was full of
yeah.
good spirits.
I mean, I shouldn't really say that that's very brave of you to do that because I think it is quite safe. I think it is very safe in the Philippines, but it's the same with my husband because my husband is English or he's
Uh-huh.
British. So it's the same with him. My family wouldn't let him go out on his own. And that's one of the
Really?
reasons why he's not really that keen because he likes traveling and he wants to do his thing and he wanted to explore and everything. But
Yeah.
they wouldn't let him do that. So,
Uh,
which is a shame, really. But I'm sure it'll be, it'll be okay.
like,
But
you got
I
to be
know it's all
sneaky.
like yeah, I've still got loads of things to ask you. So, first of all, what happened to your website? Because I tried last night when I was writing my script, and it's giving me error messages saying that I
Oh,
can't load it. So, is there
you know,
something wrong with
the,
it now, or
Scott Wilcox just mentioned that. Yeah, there. I think I need to check it out. There may be a security socket layer, a secure socket layer issue. So I'm gonna find out what's
okay?
going on with that. Because yeah, as a web designer, I had to get right on that and make sure it's not conflicted.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
think.
I thought maybe it was just my desktop. So I tried it on my mobile phone as well, using a different browser, which is Safari. And it's still the same. It won't let me access that website. And I thought I've seen it before. I'm sure I have seen that
Yeah,
before. But it
yeah, and
just
it's it,
now.
it's it's loading on my end as well right now. But yeah, kevinrankin.com, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one. Yeah, Kevin
yeah,
Rankin. Yeah, yeah. So I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
what happened, but anyways, hopefully it will be okay again.
Hopefully, yeah.
So I found out from there that you're actually inducted to the Oregon Music Hall of Fame. That
That's
was
right.
2 or 3 years ago. Was
Last
is
year.
that last year? Oh, was it last
Well,
year? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. It was October of 22. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Because you've
That
been
was.
living there so like for a long time. So because I was sort of like thinking, so that you're not from there, but I don't think there's a Montana Music Hall of Fame, is there?
If there
Is there?
is, I don't think I belong in it, but I don't know that I necessarily belong in the Oregon one either. But it was a really beautiful thing. I mean, the cool thing about that organization is that they do a massive fundraiser every year for music scholarships for youth that want to pursue music as a career in college. So, so they give away, I think, 6 different scholarships for people that are wanting to go on to college but need a
Oh,
little bit of assistance. And so I love the musical education component. I'm not a huge fan of like award shows and contests because I think music is subjective and it's hard to say that one person is more deserving than another. But
yeah.
I was honored that they would even consider it. It was a beautiful honor to be in it. So that was really nice.
No, it's just yeah, that's very good. Congratulations. Maybe
Thank you.
next time is it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We
Fingers
were just there. We
crossed.
were there the day after my dad passed away, and we got a tour of it, and I put one of those stickers right there in it, so I can officially say I'm in the Hall of Fame,
Oh,
like because my sticker's on the wall next to Bill Ward from
on,
Black Sabbath's drum set. So there
oh,
you
that's
go.
brilliant. Yeah, it's very well, another thing that I wanted to ask you about is your podcast. I said to my husband earlier today when I found out that you do your own podcast, and I had a look at it. It's so professionally done, and
Oh,
I
thank you.
said to him, I feel a bit so like intimidated now. I don't because mine is just like really, it's just a basic thing. So it's called All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. and I've actually subscribed to it as well. So
good. Thank you.
So you started it sort of like more or less the same time as me. It was like during lockdown.
Yeah.
So what made you sort of like do it? Is it just because we're not seeing anyone and we're not doing anything?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I also played music with Jennifer Batten, the guitarist from Michael Jackson, and Jeff Beck. She was one of the big Michael Jackson videos with the platinum blonde, huge hair. And so I started playing with her in Portland 20 years ago, and we would have fun conversations on Facebook Live, or just we would chat. And I was having Facebook Live chats with Gord Depp from A Flock of Seagulls on Facebook, since he was in Toronto and I was in Oregon. We said, we laughed thinking, when are we going to get out and do this thing again? It might be 2-3 months before we can get back out, not realizing that it was, going to be almost 2 years that we weren't going to play.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But Jennifer said, hey, you know what? Your banter was really fun together. You get a lot of people. That. No, it's all right. Yeah. There's police looking for the kidnapped drummer. But,
yeah, we live on the main road. That's why you can hear all those sort of like things. So,
no problem.
So
but she encouraged me to do a podcast, and I thought, you know what? Everybody's got a podcast. I don't know that I necessarily would be, interested in doing it. And I said, maybe if you do it with me, I'll do it. And I just jumped in, and I really wished that I had taken the time to develop great equipment and learn better techniques and, develop my own sort of niche. But I love people, and of course I love chatting, as you can tell. And so it turned into, I think we've had like 320 episodes or something now. And there was a time where I was doing several a week, and then it's a little bit, I took some time off with my dad, and a little bit of time off when we get really busy on tour. But my plan is to hopefully do it backstage. So when we're out with these bands this summer, we've got so many shows with bands that are friends of mine and great people. And so I plan on going backstage and having just like this conversation, but sharing it with people, the public.
That's brilliant, because I've also noticed that you're actually doing one later today with the
pro scooter rider.
That's absolutely amazing, because I have sort of like subscribed, and I was just looking at it, just sort of like see who was in there, and you've had several drummers in there as well. I was all like, oh wow. So like, I'm gonna check this out later. And so
a lot of the big ones, man. Yeah.
Where do you find the time though? It's like you've got the tour with A Flock of Seagulls, and and then you've got this podcast as well. Like someone said, do you go to sleep? Or
no, I haven't slept since I was like 12. I've been, I mean, it's starting to wear on me a little bit. But I've got I'm in a great relationship, and I've got a couple of I've got older sons that I'm trying to spend a little bit of time with. My oldest son is moving to Thailand on Wednesday, and so I'm trying to get a little time in with him, and I think it's tough to find the time, but I got a beautiful pug dog named Edgar Allan Pug that I try and get out in the woods with, and still run a web design business too, so I've never been bored, and I don't like to sit around and do nothing,
I'm like that as well. I mean, I love traveling, and I love going to gigs and things like that. But you mentioned going there from he's a member, of course, he's a member of Flock of Seagulls as well, but he was in a band called Spoons. And and again, in the Philippines, one of Spoons' songs is massive. Nova Heart is really big. So I was sort of like thinking, maybe you could incorporate Nova Heart in your set list with A Flock of Seagulls, because that's just really, really great song. And because in the Philippines, we still have this radio program, which is now online, called WXB 102 MXLR, and I keep hearing Nova Heart being played, on that radio station, like all that time.
That's cool.
So when are you coming back to the UK? Because I know you're still sort of like doing gigs in America. Are there any plans of touring the UK again?
I haven't seen any. I think we've got a massive Canadian tour, like all of November, and a lot in the
Yeah.
U.S. And we're doing Mexico next month, or in May or June. And I haven't seen the UK, but I'm sure
The
we
UK.
will. We seem to
Yeah,
come back
yeah,
every year, and I think,
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, that
Well, that's
they.
great news that you've got some new music coming up, coming soon. And like I said, I mean, it's nearly, we've been talking for about an hour now, but I've still got just four regular questions I wanted to ask you.
All
Actually,
right.
it's three, because the first
Okay.
question, I'm going to skip that one because like I've said, in the beginning, you're the best twirler drummer that I've ever seen live. Every time I go to a gig, I always look at the drummers and I always sort of like just concentrate and see what they're doing and things. And with you, you know, I can't even sort of like ask you, do you twirl? Because I know you.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
And
gonna get me in
how do
trouble
you
with my
do it?
band. I'm telling you.
Well, you make it look so easy. Every time I saw like ask the drummer on the show if they twirl, and then they said no, because I always refer to you because I've seen this drummer. He's so amazing. It's like he was playing and twirling at the same time. It's all like and never drops it and never drops a stick. And sometimes
Well,
there was one time that I have to sort of like look at Mike's score because I was just concentrating on you, and he's the one singing, and I was sort of like
thank
thinking, oh,
you.
I gotta go and look at him as well.
You might have just gotten me fired. I'm just saying.
Oh no, no, but so have you always done that with your other bands, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's yeah. Growing up and playing in college and high school bands and all that. I was a big fan of the '80s rock thing, and so I think that's probably where it first came from. And the drummers that I really liked, like Tommy Lee and some of those guys,
yeah, yeah,
were doing that. I don't even think about it anymore. It's not even something I have to concentrate on not doing it sometimes, and I've been in bands where the singer turns around and said, "Look, this is not the circus, right?" And so I like, have to stop because I don't even think about it. It just happens, and
yeah. I
it's
can tell
become
it's
part of.
natural.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of part of how I play the songs now. Anyway, there are certain
Yes,
songs where it just comes out in that place, and it always is there. Sometimes, there are some things where I'll toss the stick way up, and I try to like hit the rafters, and so I'll drop a couple of those every once in a while, and I'm not trying to have a circus show, but I do like the sort of thrill and mixing it up a little bit that way. But the twirling, there are a couple of other drummers that are huge. They're friends of mine, and they're
yeah,
amazing at it. Like Glenn Sobel is one of my best buddies. I love the dude so much. He's been with Alice Cooper for a long time. He's remarkable at both hands spinning, and he twirls. He's probably the closest person I think that twirls the way that I do. But Nate Morton is an amazing drummer too. He's on the American version of The Voice, and he's the house
oh,
drummer.
okay,
And
yeah, yeah,
I love watching both of them because they're animated drummers. They are both, high echelon, the best, and the best drummers, but also
yeah.
put on a great show. And it's show business, right? It's entertainment. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Oh no, don't change, please, please don't, because I just love watching so like drummers who actually do that, and so. But
uh,
well, the next question is sort of like drumming heroes. You mentioned Tommy Lee, and he's the
yeah,
one who's sort of like gone on this sort of like thing where he spins round and doing it.
right. I
Have you
would.
actually? Have you asked
No.
Mike Score if you could do something?
Oh man, he knows I would do it. Mike knows I'm a massive roller coaster fan, and I would be so up for that. I mentioned Glenn Sobel a minute ago because Alice Cooper and Motley Crue were touring together, and Tommy Lee hurt his hand, and so he had to take time off, and he had Glenn play for him in Motley Crue, and so he got to go up and do the spinning roller coaster thing, and he said he didn't play during the show spinning upside down, but he did get to go do the coaster, which is awesome. But
Oh,
if Mike Score had it in the rider, if we had a spinning drum riser, man, I could just check that bucket list item right off. Yeah. I'm trying to get Mike to book his show on the moon. I want to be the first band to play out in space. So
Oh yeah, yeah. So any other drumming heroes apart
yeah.
from Tommy
Well,
Lee?
I mean, Tommy was like the first guy that I saw how dangerous he looked while he played, but I wouldn't really call him much of an influence as much anymore. I'm a big John Bonham fan as far as drumming goes. I like the way that
Yeah,
his
yeah,
feel was. A
yeah,
massive Stuart Copeland fan. I love Copeland's drumming. I I think the guys that really played with conviction and feel, like as far as like big influences. Even though I'm not a progressive jazz guy, like of course Vinnie Colaiuta and Dave Weckl. Dave Weckl was a big influence on me as a person when I was a teenager. I got to meet him when I was 16, and he
yeah,
was so kind. He even wrote me a letter and transcribed some stuff, and just gave me good advice about playing and keeping my head on, avoiding drugs and alcohol. If you wanted to do that kind of stuff, if you wanted to play music for a career, he said you can't put stuff up your nose, and you can't be drinking like a fish and do this when you're in your 60s. And I loved that he had great advice for a 16-year-old. So Weckl, Steve Gadd, love Steve Gadd.
oh yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
those
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
I'm a massive fan. Yeah.
Oh,
But
it's good. Yeah. Next one is: have you ever had sort of like disasters? You've been playing since you were a teenager. Have you ever had sort of like or what we call like, I call them disasters, but just accidents, like maybe falling off, falling off your drum stool, or maybe hitting your face with a stick or something like that.
oh yeah, I mean I've hit myself a ton of times. I poked myself in the eye like on Saturday night, or like because we played Friday night in Cerritos, California. Saturday we were in Napa, California. The Friday night show, uh, with Men Without Hats,
Yeah.
they put a huge sub on the riser, for a sub monitor, and it was rubbing up against my hip, and I had a hip pack on with my in-ear monitors, and
Yeah.
it rubbed my pack off, and the pack had the loop. There's a during Wishing, I had a photograph of you. There's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
this whole loop that goes through the whole song, and it's going on my ears. Nothing else on the stage or in my monitors. The pack got rubbed off, hit the ground, burst apart. All the batteries fell out and
Oh,
everything, so I couldn't hear anything. And of course, there's YouTube footage of a couple of guys scrambling behind me, assembling my in-ear monitors back together and putting them back in my ear. And thankfully, came back through and everything worked out just fine. The important thing is, if you have a disaster, is that you pretend like you meant to do it and you act like nothing happened, right? So yeah, yeah,
yeah. Because the audience will probably think it's just part of the show.
yeah. Oh look, he's got guys at his beck and call. They just come up and serve him behind the stage. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yes, my minions.
Yes. And the last question is: what would be your advice to aspiring drummers or musicians in general? Because you were given a really good advice, you said,
I
when you
had a
were
lot of great
young. So,
advice.
yeah,
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 you know, I wish I knew a lot more about the music business early on. So I wish I had studied marketing and business, and was able to negotiate contracts and maybe advocate for myself a little bit more that way.
yeah,
So no matter what, that's important advice, whether it's music or otherwise. Um, I feel for aspiring young musicians. My son, who turns 25 this week, is an incredible drummer, but he's also a talented hip hop rapper and artist.
oh,
And the
yeah,
music industry right now is so difficult to break into that, um, I would think, for advice, you've got to tell people to really understand social marketing, social media marketing, and search engines, and being able to negotiate, or navigate, those kind of business channels.
yeah,
It's great to have all the talent and all the skill, and you could practice till you're, like you're exhausted. But if you don't have relationships, so I think building relationships is probably the most important part of my business success. Just getting to know
yeah,
people, and it's brought me everywhere in this business. And so work on communication and talking and
yeah,
listening.
yeah, yeah. And so, like, have a, you know, a good rapport with people, not just sort of like in the music business, but with fans and everything.
Yeah.
Because you
Oh yeah.
definitely have sort of like the fans sort of like just go up to you, and so I'm sure
Well,
you've seen that in the Philippines, and when the
I'm a
Filipinos are just
fan.
all like, hey,
I'm as much
yeah,
a
yeah,
fan as a member of the band. You know, I don't even really like to call people fans, just because I consider them, they become friends for
friends,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're right where I would be if I wasn't on stage. So
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I'm really, really glad that you said yes to Ask the Drummer. And I know you're very busy, and sorry that we've gone on longer than an hour. I did say it's only an hour. And good luck with the podcast today. It goes out
thank you.
live as well, isn't it?
It does.
So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, yeah. So is it, do you go with him, or is it like this
It's
online,
similar.
or?
Yeah, yeah. I do, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Twitch. And yeah, if they go to accesskevin.com, they can subscribe.
AccessKevin.com, and yeah, and then it's on YouTube as well. And no, but I'm sort of like saying, because when it's Access All Areas, do you go with him, or do you go like maybe because he's a pro scooter, is it
Oh
professional
yeah, so
thing, or
my guest today, yeah, Walter Perez. No, he's in California, and he will be virtual. The way this is, it'll be a virtual.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I do go in person. Um,
It's like
he
backstage, isn't it? Like at the gigs, it's sort of like saying,
sometimes,
talking
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. We've got a good tour coming up with Men Without Hats. I think we're doing a bunch of shows. We always play with Wang Chung. They're great friends of mine, and
Oh
I
wow,
love.
yeah.
We've done a bunch of backstage hangs there, and the thing is, people that might not, that people that maybe aren't touring musicians might not realize that backstage is not what you really expect it to be. If people think that backstage is a bunch of partying and drinking,
Partying,
and
yeah, and stuff, yeah.
yeah, and
A lot
it's
of
not. We're
drinking
talking.
and
Yeah, we're hanging. We're talking about our families and our dogs, and what we did for during COVID, and where the nearest laundromat is, and but it's beautiful, right? It's wonderful to develop those kinds of
yeah.
connections with people, and feel like you've got some similarities. So
Yeah. Well, I suppose you won't have Steve Kilby on your podcast because he's not.
yeah, he might not be a fan of me, but I want him on there for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Come on, Gilby. I'm trying to feed you.
well, just before I let you go, someone else just said loving the full bed, and that's
Oh,
beard, and that's James. Yelvik, is that how you pronounce his name? But yeah, James Yelvik. So
Jim Jelvig. Yeah, he's there in the
Jelvik,
UK with
yeah,
you.
yeah,
He's in the
yeah. So,
Midlands.
oh
Jim
right,
and I went to
yeah.
school together in Montana.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow, that's so well. That's
Yeah.
he loves your beard, so
Thanks, buddy.
thank you.
I'm trying.
Oh,
I'm
thank
trying to
you.
take it off.
Oh,
My girlfriend likes it. She wants me to keep it on. But
thank you so much, Kevin, and good luck with everything. And I really hope that you'll come to the UK again, and I will go and
thank you.
see a flock of seagulls again because absolutely amazing. And don't change. Please keep doing all these twirling and throwing
Thank you,
sticks and
Anne.
everything. So,
Okay, you got it.
yeah, and enjoy the rest of, well, not really the rest of the day, but brand new week. So have a good week and
Yeah, you too. Well, happy
so
Earth Day, and
yeah, yeah,
happy
to that.
heavenly birthday to your dad. And
Thank you
I
so
I
much.
wish you I wish your health the best. Okay, so thank you for
Oh,
having me
thank
here.
you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you'll always be so like important to me because of what happened that day. So,
Oh man,
like,
I'm
thank you
grateful.
so much. All right,
Thank
see you
you.
again soon.
You
Bye
got
for
it, Anne.
now.
Take care.
Bye.
All right,
Yeah,
peace,
take
everyone.
care. Bye, Kevin. Bye. Aw, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. Kevin Rankin, it's absolutely amazing, and it's true what they say. I've seen it on Google when I was like doing my script yesterday. That people have said that he is like the nicest person you could ever meet, the nicest musician you could ever meet. And it is true. I did talk to him that time just for a brief period because they're busy and everything. But I'm so glad that I was able to sort of like talk to him for over an hour and able to sort of like know his story more. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us, and I'll be back next week, hopefully on a Sunday. But I'm just waiting for the reconfirmation from the drummer for next week's Ask the Drummer episode. But for now, I just want to say thank you. And as always, love music, love life, love, love, love drummers. They're just absolutely the best. And I think they're the coolest. Like we've seen Kevin. Now I'm going to say they're the nicest people on this planet as well. So thank you all so much, and hope to see you all again on Sunday. Take care, and yeah, bye for now. Bye.